Hey everyone, it's Types, and today I'm going to be going over the best card for every Pokemon from Gen 5 that's a legendary or mythical or whatever. And yeah, if for those of you who don't know, Gen 5 is actually, I think, my favorite generation. It's the one I kind of grew up on. So, I mean, I grew up on a series of generations, but I'd say Gen 5 is the main one. Um, and I know it's one that many of you grew up with as well. And it's a bit of a soft reset. That's kind of what is considered, which is considered bad by some and good by some, but that means it has a lot of legendaries. So let's just hop right into it. First of all, we got Victini. Victini was one that I was the least sure of, as there are a lot of decent Victinis. Over to the right, we see one that just does more for the amount of Pokemon you have in play. It's pretty good. There are a few like this, and this is the one people use. Other one in the middle allows you to reuse coin flips, which is situational but useful. Then over to the left here allows you to just go ahead and search search your deck for cards and put them into your hand and hit some damage, but not a ton. But it's a very nice setup one, and there's another nice setup one that accelerates energy. So I feel like most fire decks um, could use a Victini. You don't have to, but Victini's it's a Pokemon with a lot of different cards, so they're all pretty decent and certainly worth running. Next up, we got Cobalion, the first of the Swords of Justice. And there's a number of good Cobalions as well. I think the best one has to be the one on the left here, which is 30 and 30 more for each prize your opponent's taken, allowing you to hit very big damage by the end of the game, hitting 180 for only 2. Also, Quick Guard means you're immune to basic Pokemon next turn. You can't spam it, you can't use it multiple turns back to back, but you can use it to buy yourself a turn at some point, and it's not a bad attack at all. The other Cobalion in the middle here is a bit of a newer one, so it has some better overall stats. It's a pretty generic card, but it's all right. And then the one to the right here is an interesting one. It increases your damage done to dark Pokemon. There are actually a number of them like that, but obviously that's very specific. But then you also are able to do follow-up, which is 30, and then you accelerate energy to your bench Pokemon, which is decent. Next up, we have Terrakion, another one of the swords. And I think the best one is the one over to the left here with Cavern Tackle, 120 over 3. And then it's completely immune to damage. Again, you can't spam this attack. You can't use it back-to-back turns, but it is very strong, giving you complete immunity. If you want a more generic card, you can go with a Vivid Voltage Terrakion, which has 140 HP, a generic Guard Press attack, and a generic Earth and Power attack, allowing you to hit a small amount of damage plus some tankiness, and then you can do just a big amount of damage as well. You need a Stadium Plate, though, which is not always something you'll do, but something you'll want to do. Overall, though, these two Terrakions are very solid. Especially with fighting being a weaker type. In a stronger type, they might not see play, but I feel like in fighting next, assume you have like some amount of energy acceleration. Terrakion will be a very solid Pokemon. Also, sorry if there's any background noise. Next up, we got Virizion. And Virizion is not as good, but this one on the left isn't awful. Bailout allows you to recover some Pokemon. More importantly, prize count. If you're down on prizes, you hit you hit 120 damage, which is very solid. And so that's just very nice. On the other side, we have this other version, which is newer. This first attack allows you to accelerate and hit 30, which is, I'd say, a little better than the other versions. And then we also see Pike 90 and 30 Snipe, which is pretty solid. Obviously, it's not the greatest thing in the world, but it's decent. Next up, though, we have Tornadus. Tornadus is a heavy hitter in colorless decks. We saw the one on the left, I believe, is the one that can use the tool with the GX attack, which is very useful. Obviously, GX attacks are good, but generally, because you can't play GX attacks in GLC format, they're just not used. So there are some tools that allow you to use GX attacks, and you can use them with Tornadus. With this one on the left because of Air Slash. And it's both attacks are just mediocre attacks as well, not bad by any means, and certainly usable. On the right here, we have another one with a decent attack, 100 for 3, but then we see that it has its ability Sudden Cyclone on play. It forces your opponent's active to the bench, which is just a bit annoying, and gives you a bit more versatility, and also allows you to just attack with it, and it's pretty decent as well. Thundurus is interesting as well. We got two Thunduruses. The one is super new. The one on the right I'll talk about first here, which is a generically solid attacker, allowing you to accelerate some energy, hit decent damage, the normal stuff. On the left here, we have one that does 140 for 2, which is very strong, but 90 to itself, which is almost all of its health. You have an ability Averse Weather as well, which gives you bench barrier if it's in the active, which is pretty specific and pretty strange as well, but overall I'd say it's very good. And one that I highly recommend you put in many decks. That being said, you need to play carefully with it. You may want to do cards to stop self-damage as well, which are out there. Next up, we got Reshiram. I believe the first Pokemon here that's multi-type. In the I was gonna say the Fire Reshiram. There's two Fire Reshirams. The one in the middle is the classic one, which is a very iconic card that has outrage, does more for each damage counter on it, and then hits this generic 120 for 3. There's a newer version of this card as well, which you can choose which one you want. And they are slightly different. But then the one on the right does 270, but his attack cost is obviously very awkward, as you can see. But then the Reshiram all the way to the left is probably the best one, as it's in Dragon type and important to fire type based dragon deck because obviously fire has a lot of tools. I believe in my next podcast episode, I'll be talking about that. I don't know, but like with Welder and stuff, you got them, and they're very good. So this Reshiram says Turbo Blaze. If it's in the active, you may accelerate a fire energy from your hand to one of your dragon Pokemon. Obviously that's good. It's energy acceleration. Next up, we got Zekrom. The Dragon Zekrom here is not as good. It's not awful, but it's kind of generic. But the one on the left here is a very decent lightning Pokemon. Again, there's a newer version of this one, which you could use if you want as well. Zekrom's a pretty decent generic lightning attacker. It's not too expensive, and it hits a decent amount of damage and has a decent amount of tankiness. I'm a lightning player, and I like it. I've actually sometimes cut it, but sometimes I put it back in, as it's pretty overall decent. Except we got Landorus. Landorus isn't great, but you have two alright Landoruses. The one on the left here is a little bit more versatile, allowing you to snipe and like move energy and stuff, but it's not super strong stat-wise. The one on the right has some pretty solid. It's like a decent big basic, not a great big basic, but not an awful one either. You do have some versatility in it as well. So Landorus gives you just a decent big basic to work with. Next up, Kyurem. And I actually have 3 different sizes for Kyurem: black, white, and regular Kyurem. The regular Kyurem, though, certainly is the best cards. You have 3 generic but pretty decent and versatile Kyurems here. One that has, they actually all have some snipe. They have some decent damaging attacks, and overall they're just pretty good. I'd say pick and choose. You don't need to play the Dragon Kyurem if you're playing a Dragon deck, but you almost definitely want a Water Kyurem if you're playing a Water deck, as it has spread, it has decent damage potential, and it has versatility as well, which is something really nice to have in a deck. Next up, we got Black Kyurem. There's a Dragon Black Kyurem. I was considering not adding this to the slide, but I did because I figured I kind of should. It's bad. There's also a Dragon White Kyurem, but Black Kyurem here, it's a big basic, hitting 200 for 4. It's a classic big basic. Is it a good card? It can be a good card because it hits hard. You need probably a number of stadiums. You'll be wanting to play a number of stadiums anyway, but you'll need to make sure you do that, and a bunch of energy acceleration. But overall, it's a very strong card. And then White Kyurem, this one I'd say is a little better, as it's only 3 energy, but it does require fire energy. Not the dragon, that one's still bad, but the water White Kyurem here, which does require fire energy, is a pretty solid card. Obviously, it kind of goes with. Actually, no, it doesn't really go with the Black Kyurem, but it's a decent card, hitting a decent amount of damage, and it is one of those weird decks that wants different types of energy. Next up, we got Keldeo, and I ended up going with the Keldeo with Line Force. It's just 20 more for each of your bench Pokemon at the base of 10, allowing you to hit 110. It's not a broken card by any means, but it's a solid generic water attacker that is decently cheap and decently strong. Next up, Meloetta, the one on the right here is kind of weird. It kind of is meant to work with tag teams. It's not particularly great as a fighting card, but it's better than nothing. But the really good card here is the Psychic one, which is a little weird. Looking at its first deck here, Soprano Wave, flip through coins. It does 10 to each of your opponent's Pokemon for each heads you flip, so it can do anywhere from 0 to everything to 30 to everything, which is 30 to everything is quite a bunch. So I feel like Meloetta here, the Psychic one, is a very solid spread Pokemon, but you need to gamble a little, and that's kind of up to you. It's not one that I personally love, but I know it's one that a lot of people like to play, and it can be very strong. Averaging 10 to 20 to each Pokemon is pretty good. We got Genesect. I can't speak Genesect. Again, we got a weird one that kind of interacts with GX and EXs, which means it doesn't do anything. But the metal one does do some snipe, which is a little weird, as obviously metal isn't like a snipe-based stack, but you can definitely get some value out of it. However, the two grass Genesects are where it's at. Shining Genesect here allows you to move energy to it, and then also hits pretty decent damage. Same thing with this other Genesect. There's even a third grass Genesect, similar to Shining Genesect, but requires a bit more energy, so I'd say it's not worth it. The regular Genesect here, though, the grass one, snipe-based attack for grass, but a very solid generic one, will work decently from time to time. But then Technoblast, hitting 120 for 3 is just a very solid overall card. And that's it. Yeah, as I said, I didn't know. I thought there's another one, but there wasn't. This is the last one. So yeah, I'm interested in hearing what your thoughts are on this. I know a lot of you like this generation as well. Um, but it's not necessarily everyone's favorite. But I think it's a decently popular one. It's a cool one as well. It has a lot of new Pokemon. What's your favorite card though from this generation? I'm interested in hearing, especially for the GLC, or even if you want to hear talk about not GLC, I'm fine with that too. Because I think there are some really cool cards in Gen 5. Like I said, it's my favorite one. I really like most of these legendaries. Um, and I'm excited to see it next time.